Thank you, Dr. Byrne. All right, I try to keep this quite informal. I will be sticking around during the Q&A session out in the hallway as well. We could always use more coffee. Just a quick show of hands. How many MS4s do we have? Nice. 3s? 2s? Awesome. And 1s? Okay, this helps me kind of gauge the discussion moving forward. If anyone has any burning questions, please feel free to raise your hands. This is, again, meant to be kind of, really, this is for you. Okay? All right. No financial disclosures to share and no conflicts of interest related to this presentation. All right. There's a little bit of overlap with the first presentation and the content that was presented. The Association of American Medical Colleges, the Electronic Residency Application Service, and the National Residency MASH program is just rich of information. You guys are smarter than anyone else, older than you in the room with technology. Use that to your advantage. There is just so much information. Use ChatGPT. Use all those resources for you to help go through jargons of data, jargons of information, to really hone in on what you're looking for. ERAS and NRMP, I feel like, have a lot of data and information that you can use on your own. I'll try to hone in on what may be useful for you for this application cycle for 2025, 2026. I'm going to provide an example of a personal statement, briefly discuss signaling, and then interviews to hopefully segue to the next presentation. So why me? Why this topic? As Dr. Byrne had mentioned, I served as former associate program director and former program director before my current role as chief in 2023. So I served as program director. I remember this day vividly. So turn back to April 1st, 2020. April Fool's joke, essentially. I started my first day, got my title and everything, got my office, and then they said, we're gonna close all the ORs next Monday. And so imagine that. But we made it, and it all feels like a blur. So during 2020, 2021, you guys were probably college students, correct? And doing Zoom lectures, OChem virtually, probably didn't do lab at that time. So I'm trying to put my mind frame of what was your undergrad experience like? I helped our program. So our program, briefly, has 27 residents, 9 a year. Our partner hospital, just 5 miles down upstream, is University of Washington. And I would call them as a competing program. They have 27 plus or minus a year. Very different program. We call our program the kind of liberal arts experience, liberal arts college, compared to a big academic university. Sorry about the formatting. We are a Google institution, and so when I converted this to PowerPoint, the question mark is supposed to be an arrow, so I apologize for that. Our team helped us navigate from a 0 signal system to a signal system, period, and then further to a gold and silver tiered system. When the era of, going from a scored exam to a pass-fail exam, that's what we went through. And so we went from a kind of a score-heavy emphasis of reviewing applications to a holistic emphasis on reviewing applications. I forget what symbol that question mark is for the USMLE Step 2, but scores to pass-fail, I think that was the intent. Zoom interviews, such a fun topic. Interviews, I cannot emphasize, that is your ticket, that's your foot in the door. And I'll show some data that DO students do much better than MD students on interviews. It is competitive, and I think those who are here presenting or not are here to see you succeed. But you need to do the work, right? Do the checklist in your mind in the years to come. ERAS briefly is an application service, a processing center for programs to review thousands of applicants, Some of you may apply to different programs and specialties. That is occurring more so than years before. So if you want to apply to emergency medicine, anesthesiology, maybe dermatology, which is kind of an outlier in that combination, this makes it easier for you and the program to process. It also does cost money. We'll talk about that in a second. And it is essentially a requirement, so do anticipate using ERAS. The application season for this year, again, going back to ERAS and RMP, look at the data. You can compare yourself to past applicants. Thalamus Cortex, have you guys heard of Thalamus? Okay, programs are using Thalamus. It is an accessory service along with ERAS to sort out through hundreds of applications, if not thousands. And it also helps you organize your interview season. So from kind of the other end of the spectrum of you as the applicant to the individual sitting in their office, opening their email, logging into Thalamus, they can see when I'm going to interview and who I'm actually going to interview on that day. You can have with the season, really looking for which program aligns what you're looking for in location, residency size, fellowship match rates, and so forth. I mentioned the fee structure. So if you see 1 to 30, it's $11 per site. So basically, ERAS is trying to work with NRMP to minimize how many applications, how many schools you're actually going to, or programs you're going to actually rank and apply to. I haven't really pulled last year for our currently matched residents, but from 3 years ago, the average number of programs people are applying to was about 75. So do the math there. It does cost money, and I would just say, just do it. It's all going to circle back with you and provide the rewards when that time comes. Program signaling, I'm going to just briefly comment on this. Signaling used to be quite a bit of a game, kind of a Pandora's box. Like, why are we doing signaling? What's the benefit to the applicant and what's the benefit to the program? Program signals from the program's point of view is not to be meant to use as a single data point, but add more data to the picture of the applicant. It offers programs an added tool in their holistic review toolkit. Programs are not encouraged to misinterpret a missing signal. So, for example, what's your name? What is your name? Victoria. So Victoria, where are you going to school? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Elijah, where are you going to school? GCOM. Okay, great. So let's say you are applying to 70 programs and you signal 15, 5 gold, maybe most in Texas, okay? 10 probably in the Midwest, or maybe in California, or maybe all over. If you don't signal the one program in Texas that remains, that program has no idea that you did not, where else you signaled. Does that make sense? Okay. That program in Texas, as you apply to them, but did not signal, will hurt you, I think, based on the data and based on my experience. So if you're in your statement saying, I really want to I want to stay in Texas, my family's here generation after generation, I already spoke with the private group that did my sub-I with, but you did not signal them, the information doesn't match up, okay? However, the program is encouraged not to give you a demerit in that experience, in that example. Does that make sense? Okay. So, yes, it's a game, it's not a game, but signaling is meant to be used for your advantage and the advantage of the programs because we're seeing so many applications. All right. This year, anesthesiology is 5 gold and 10 silver. That's been in place for a couple of years. As you can imagine, more competitive specialties like orthopedic surgery gives a total of 30. When you look at dermatology, you have 3 gold and 25 silver. It's because of the demand-supply ratio. There aren't many dermatology programs, but there are very competitive applicants. For internal medicine, there's proportionally many more applicants. And so they limit their total signals to only 15, as a matter of fact, and just give 3 gold. Some have argued why not have 3 gold and 20 silver? Why not have 1 gold and 10 silver? Those are discussions that are amongst program directors and chairs throughout the country. Have you guys heard of the SAAPM? It's the Society for all the academic programs in anesthesiology for residents and fellows. They include chairs, PDs, APDs, they're program coordinators, and we meet every year in Chicago. These are the things that we talk about, along with the ACGME. All right. Sorry, I don't know why it's blurry. Maybe it's my contacts. So when you go to the 2-tier signal system, it allows the applicants to say, it's like finding a spouse, right? It's, you're my top candidate. I really want to date you, but I kind of don't. I like this other person as well, but I'm still not sure if that's the person I really want to marry. Does that make sense? The cons of it includes, but not limited to, some programs may weigh the gold heavily and say, oh, I was actually ranked 2nd place. You know, VM, we experienced the 2nd place phenomenon. A lot of folks put gold on UW and then silver for VM. I don't know if an applicant has delineated whether I'm a silver, and then they've put gold for UW. So University of Washington, like I said, is very close by, the bigger academic, the bigger name, the bigger program. That really doesn't apply to, we could care less. We just want the right person to consider us as their future training program. Any questions about this? Key findings with the 2-tier system with the interview invitation rates for last year's match program. Gold signals resulted in more interview invites than silver, no brainer. Both outperformed applicants who didn't signal. So, if you want to use your geographical and program signals to your advantage, do strategize what you're going to give a gold and what you're going to give a signal. But if your geographical signal does not line up with what your gold and silver are, it's going to provide a really murky kind of presentation for you as an applicant to the program. This is one of many, many horizontal bar graphs from the match. This is showing you from the data, from the survey results, what you as the applicant look for in selecting a program. So of the top 10, so the blue bar is a reflection of frequency, and then the green bar is a reflection of score of 1 to 5. What is the important factors for you? So of the top 10, 4 of them, I would say, are in the lifestyle category. So, sorry, I need new contacts. This is really embarrassing. Vacation, personal and family leave policy, call schedule, salary, and I thought there was one more. I'll say top 12 is the sick and bereavement leave policies. As current chief of the department, there's a lot of discussion of labor workforce. Residents are a component of that workforce. You guys are applying for a job. You're going to get a salary. You're going to get benefits that are paid to you by the hospital or the organization. So the mindset of you're applying to medical school, I just go to class, or don't go to class. I just listen to my, scribe on 1.2, 1.5, 2x speed, take the tests, boom, I'm done. Do my clerkships, I'm done. Residency, you're learning, also you have a job, you're an employee. And so these are legitimate, these are really interesting and important factors to look at as a resident, okay? It also provides some enlightening information for programs and their hospital CMOs and our DIOs. When we look at this data, things like this matter. So you should be asking these questions in a very political way come interview day. Ranking factors. So you've done your interview, you're now about to rank. Not many dissimilarities from the prior slide, but the frequency inches up a little bit. Call schedule, salary, and if you go to the bottom, these are ranked obviously. Insurance benefits, patient caseload, and funding for educational and professional development activities. That really refers to, do I get paid for going to conferences like this? Do I get paid for my board exams? You know, the basic, for example. Any questions about this? There are, again, dozens of charts and data points you can review on your own on NRMP. Basically, what I want to share with this is you will rank all the programs you interviewed at, whether you have one. I can't recall one of my, so we have 3 DOs right now, how many they actually interviewed at, but they were not in the double digits, surprisingly. One match applicant had interviewed at 2, one match applicant interviewed at 9, just going off the top of my head. So those who have ranked, those students, OMS candidates who have rotated and ranked, obviously had success. And again, that should be kind of obvious to all of you. This is a plot diagram which shows the obvious. You're going to interview at a site, you'll likely match if you do well with an interview. This shows that the DO applicants have a slight advantage, a slight delta increase. If 10 OMS students interview at, let's say, VM, 10 allopathic students interview and may not have rotated at VM, this shows me and us that the osteopathic medical students do a better job at delivering, communicating, answering the tough questions on their Zoom interview day. Is that clear? So on a whole, OMS students are practicing, they're more personable, they show humility, they make eye contact, they're not boastful, right? I love the candidate when you have the interview day on Zoom and you have maybe 10 framed awards in the back, and you have a guitar, and you have, 10 medals with a bicycle in the background hanging upside down. And so those are so many talking points, right? That shows me that they're there to show their accolades, not who they are as an individual. Data. This is the link, and you'll get this slide deck shortly. So this is back in Reddit, for Reddit a couple of years ago. Some comments. Who actually uses Reddit? Oh, wow. Okay. Reddit, I don't use Reddit. I use my colleagues to use Reddit to help me do that work. But Reddit, there's so many interesting opinions, but this one is frequently one commenter, I don't know who they are, frequently overlooked section that has come up in every single interview I've had, more than any other section by far. For future ERS applicants, spend time on this to actually put some effort and thoughts expanding on hobbies. Don't just put cooking, right? Cooking, especially Italian cuisine, especially love making risotto. Looking to learn making Italian desserts like tiramisu. I mean, this sounds like a dating website, right? When you when you kind of talk about interviews and signaling and so forth. So spend time on your hobbies and interests. This will be a part of your experiences. Be authentic. Be humble. I can't reiterate how important that is. Dr. Cook talked about the ACRAC website or podcast. This is episode 282. This is from a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago. Focus on minute 1311. It starts the discussion on osteopathic medical students. It emphasizes mentorship. I use this for our medical students that rotate through VM, MDs, and DOs. It talks to disparities. It talks about not giving up. It talks about just the rules of engagement for that current cycle. And every year there are some slight deviations, so make sure you are kind of putting that refresh button on the things that your friends have told you from years past about the application process. The best chance of matching is during your OMS or MS4 year, okay? It is much more difficult when you have a PGY1 switching a specialty, or a PGY1 who is in the middle of their TY year in their surgical track. I was bound to be a surgical resident to become a oncologic surgeon. And the PGY1 year, I decided to change my mind. That becomes more challenging because you have to change your dialogue, your objectives, and show them that I made a mistake. I thought I wanted to be a surgeon, but I don't like that anymore, but I'm gonna go to anesthesiology. So that kind of is a red flag, but you really need to make that case in a very humble and honest approach with those reviewing application. Clerkships, I cannot reiterate the importance of clerkships. Recommendation letters, I probably read about 1,000 each year, if not more. And I did read through all of them. I expected my interview selection panel to review all hundreds of them. I have not read a single letter that has said, "This student is horrible, please call me." But the message is within the optics of the letter. If you have a letter that has one paragraph, it is a red flag. If you have a letter that was easily populated through ChatGPT, red flag. So what it tells me is that, great, this student worked hard, showed a letter of interest, got letters of recommendation just to get the sub-I rotation, but there was no relationship there. It was just an email or a text saying, "Hey, Dr. Johnson, can you write me a letter of recommendation? Here are the ERAS steps. I'll send you the link." That kind of fake relationship translates to the letter, and it's very palpable and very transparent when someone writes a letter like that. So, how do you build a relationship with a faculty member or a private practice anesthesiologist when you rotate? That's up to you. We could give you the tools, but know how to talk to people. Remember your pleases and thank yous, and show that you actually care about this specialty and care about learning. One of my mentors told me, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. So I was supposed to be here at a certain time, I was told, but I apologize, the optics of looking late. And if you're late, she would have said something that was not appropriate for this conference. But those things really matter on your clerkships. Your clerkships are like a 4-week job stint is the way I look at it. And step 2, competitiveness. They do matter. So take your step 2 exams and do well. If you don't know how to do well, there are plenty of resources out there. They do have a cost, but it is certainly worth it. Practice, 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 and do well. Personal statement, keep it to 1 page, please. Tell your story. Have an engaging opening paragraph, but not too dramatic or poetic. If that makes sense. We just want to know who you are. That is all. Polished. Please don't have any typos. Please keep it to a professional font. Looks matter, right? On interview day. Don't wear a hoodie. That sort of thing. Gaming chairs drive me nuts. Because gaming chairs, people end up slouching, okay? Or have these big, I don't know what they're called, it's not bows, but they're huge, right? And they have this thing. And it looks like you're maybe going to space or you're working for mission control. You're just we just want to know who you are. You don't need those fancy gadgets. Avoid AI when it comes to a personal statement is what I would say. But I get it. You guys are applying to a number of programs and may not have all the time in the world, may need help. A lot of, it's clear if my child were to apply to a program, she'd probably use AI and then personalize it, right? The future of the PS, I don't know what that means is personal statement. I don't know what the future of the personal statement will be, but I do anticipate to have it go away or have less emphasis, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay, this is an example of personal statement. For the sake of time and too many words, I'll abbreviate. The first paragraph I will read. From the first time I stepped into the operating room during my rotations at the University of Pittsburgh, I felt drawn to the orchestrated precision of anesthesiology. Observing anesthesiologists manage physiology in real time, making swift decisions during crises, and collaborate seamlessly with surgical teams solidified my belief that this field uniquely combines intellectual rigor with hands-on patient care. As I progressed through medical school at the University of Michigan, this initial impression evolved into a focused career aspiration. So that tells me I did my rotation, I loved anesthesiology, boom. I value the behind-the-scenes leadership anesthesiologists provide, a dynamic interaction with surgical staff. My passion for anesthesiology is also supported by my life outside the hospital, traveling to 45 countries and engaging in mountaineering and photography have expanded my perspective, cultivated adaptability, and strengthened my ability to work under pressure. What do you think of this letter? It's pretty good, right? This personal statement has personalized touch. I'm here to bring my work ethic and curiosity. These are words that chairs and program directors want to hear, because this is not just about interviewing a resident, it's about interviewing a future colleague, future faculty member. I use that with ChatGPT, right? I see a nod here. How did you know? Yep. I did not make any personal edits. I added some of my own personal, tidbits. And so I said, help me write a personal statement for anesthesiology residency at program application. Absolutely. Well, thank you, ChatGPT, for doing that. So I answered these questions, not all 10 of them. After I supply that, I just did 1, 2, and so forth down to 10. Once I have this info, I'll create a strong customized draft. If you're short on time, I can also provide a journal template right now. So have you guys done this for fun? No? Probably the 4s. Okay. Don't fall into the trap, because there's some themes here. The second paragraph and the last one, it is a red flag. Some programs who are very nitpicky about the awareness of ChatGPT in their personal statement won't even give you the second line a day if they catch this. Just talking to some colleagues at Vanderbilt, the UC Systems, USC. It's the idea that, I can play this game, and the program reviewers don't want to be manipulated in that way. It's kind of odd to say here in this venue, but that is true. Going on to interviews practice, Zoom in versus in-person interviews. Zoom interviews it's an art, it takes practice. Look the part, lights, camera, action, lighting, your Wi-Fi, it does matter. But some programs are very gracious in understanding that limitation when you're in a closet during your rotations, and so or you're traveling. And it goes both ways. You're interviewing them, and those interviewers that you encounter during your interview journey, take your notes too, because if they're not on camera, if they're not engaged and they don't know you as the applicant, meaning they haven't reviewed your application, there's one applicant that may say, I don't even care, I just want to get in. And the other applicant who has a little bit more competitiveness may say, I don't know if I really want to go there. So make sure you know that this goes both ways. The journey Ask yourself, is anesthesia really for you? Did you have enough exposure to anesthesia? And I think this conference is one example of asking those questions, especially even as an MS3. MS4, I decided really late. I was an ENT bound resident. And believe it or not, it was August where I changed my mind. Anesthesia was my number 2. So it's not too late. And the joys in the journey, I can't tell you how anesthesiology is a great specialty, but it is a lifelong journey. There's a lot of influence from politics, from the financial burden that every hospital institution is facing. So thank you for applying to anesthesiology. We need more anesthesiologists. We need more mentorship. We need more programs. And that's, it's time for some folks outside of my scope to wake up and know that there are people like you all interested in this specialty, and we're here to help. And just don't forget your please and thank yous in any step of the way of your career, whether it's academics or private practice, and we're all in this together. Any questions? And what is your name? Alex, and where do you go to school? Nice. So did you drive here? Okay. Yeah, I'm from Seattle, so it wasn't a drive. And I didn't know this area. I've never been to Georgia. It's super hot for September. Well, what's your question? I think it's the structure of the medical school itself. The medical schools, that's a great question. I have a couple of DO colleagues on faculty, and we actually have this conversation when we look at non-osteopathic attendings consent or have a difficult conversation. The delta is not very large, but there's something about the osteopathic medical school education that allows you to have those difficult conversations. So I went to PCOM, that's Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in Philadelphia. I remember having a course, not a full course, but a lecture. It was in the simulation lab, so OMM lab, and it wasn't OMM per se, but we had a how to talk to people class, and all of us were like, this is such a waste of our time. It was mandatory, and we were intentionally paired with someone we didn't know and given some tough conversation topics. And I remember that because it was an hour that I really wanted to not participate in. And perhaps osteopathic medical students are, quote, non-traditional. They have taken some other time between undergrad and medical school. I took 3 years off to travel. I love to travel, and that's what I did, and worked in research. Not first author, but I helped open a lab in Philadelphia in the suburbs and did that for 2 years. So that those extra colorful aspects of your story, I think, not only amplify your application, number 2, it gives you real life experience to speak with and learn how to speak with someone on a different pay grade and someone you're not trying to brown nose. So I think that's, really important experience. Yeah. Oh, I think we're gonna cut but please find me. I'm gonna be in the hallway getting coffee during the break. Thank you.